Ava stood frozen outside her apartment, her phone vibrating nonstop in her hand. One call ended. Another started immediately. She did not need to check the names. She already knew. Two different men, calling at the same time. Both expecting her. Both believing they were the only one. Ava closed her eyes slowly. How did it get this far? 3 weeks earlier. It started quietly. Not with a decision. Not with intention. Just moments. Small, ordinary moments that looked harmless at the time. Mornings for Ava Brooks were never rushed, but they were never easy either. Her small apartment in Chicago carried the soft hum of city life outside. The apartment was not much, but it was hers. She had worked hard to get it. Ava sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone while the screen stayed stubbornly blank. No messages yet. No urgent calls. No reason to move faster than necessary. Just silence. Simple. Safe. She breathed in slowly, then out, and reached for her sweater hanging over the chair. At 22, Ava was in that strange stretch of life where everyone expected her to already know who she was becoming. But Ava was still figuring things out. She was a junior at a university. She also worked part-time at a bookstore near campus, where the pay was modest. She was not drowning. But she was not floating either. She was managing. She brushed her hair back, checked the clock. Plenty of time before class. Plenty of time before work. She stood, pulled on her shoes, and grabbed her bag. Then her phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a name she had started to know too well. Ethan Cole. A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Just a text. You good this morning? She stared at it for a second, then typed back. Yeah, heading to class. Almost immediately, another message came in. From Marcus Hale. Just checking in. Call me when you have a minute. Her smile faded, though she was not sure why. She held the phone in both hands and looked at the screen, her expression unreadable even to herself. 2 messages. 2 men. 2 very different kinds of attention. And she had not yet learned that the difference between being wanted and being needed could change everything. Ethan had come into her life first. Not dramatically. Not with roses or grand speeches or some impossible moment that felt ripped from a movie. He came in like most good things in real life did. Quietly. A little unexpectedly. And then he stayed. It happened on campus one afternoon when Ava's phone died right before she had to give a presentation. She had been standing outside the lecture hall with a knot in her stomach, tapping the dead screen as though irritation alone could bring it back to life. Still not working? Ava looked up and saw Ethan standing there with a charging cable in one hand and a half-amused expression on his face. She blinked. I think it hates me. He glanced down at the phone and nodded seriously. Fair. Some phones are like that. She let out a small laugh despite herself. He held the cable out. You can use mine if you want. She hesitated. You do not even know me. That has never stopped people from being kind. The way he said it was so matter-of-fact, so easy, that she took the cable without thinking too hard about it. That was Ethan. Easy. Not perfect. Not polished. Not trying too hard to impress. Just present. After that, they kept crossing paths. At first it was casual. A nod in the hallway. A quick conversation outside class. A question about an assignment. A shared joke. Then it became longer walks across campus. Then lunch together when both of them happened to be free. Then sitting side by side on benches and talking until they lost track of time. Ethan was a student too, but he carried himself with a steadiness that made him seem older than he was. He studied business, worked weekends at a grocery store, and always seemed to be carrying some invisible weight he never complained about. He wore the same black backpack almost every day. His sneakers were clean but old. His jackets were warm but worn. And somehow none of that made him less attractive to Ava. It made him real. With Ethan, laughter came easily. Too easily. It felt like standing near a warm window in winter. It did not solve anything, but for a moment, it made life easier to bear. The more time she spent with him, the more he became part of her routine. He remembered the kind of coffee she liked. He noticed when she looked tired before she admitted it. He walked her home when it got late. He texted her after class just to ask how the presentation went. He was the sort of person who paid attention to little things, and that attention made Ava feel seen in a way she had not realized she needed. One evening, they ended up outside a small food stand near campus because neither of them had the money for anything better. Ethan stood beside the counter, counting a few bills in his hand with the kind of concentration that made him seem more serious than he was. Just a second before, Ava watched him and smiled softly. "Ethan, it is okay. I am not that hungry." He looked up at her. "You said that yesterday." "I meant it yesterday too." He gave her a look that said he did not believe her at all. Then he turned and ordered one plate. Ava frowned. "You did not have to do that." He accepted the food when it came and handed her the first bite without answering. "Eat," he said simply. She hesitated, then took it. They stood there sharing one meal like it was nothing special, like it was not one of those quiet little moments that slip into a person's memory and stay there longer than expected. After a while, Ethan leaned back against the wall and looked out at the street. "I am going to get there," he said. Ava glanced at him. "Get where?" He shrugged, eyes still on the road. "Somewhere better. Somewhere I do not have to count every dollar before I spend it." She studied his face for a moment. There was no shame in his voice, only honesty. "You do not have to do that for me," she said. He looked at her then, directly, with a seriousness that made her chest tighten. "I know," he said. "I want to." Ava did not answer. Because that was the problem. He meant everything he said. There was no game in him. No performance. No hidden joke waiting around the corner. Whatever he offered sincerely. And sincerity was a dangerous thing when a person did not know what to do with it. Marcus Hale was different from the beginning. Different in the way he walked into rooms. Different in the way he spoke. Different in the way he looked at things as though they should already be arranged to his liking. The first time Ava noticed him, he did not notice her at all. He came into the bookstore where she worked part-time, stepped through the entrance like a man used to getting what he wanted, and asked about the business strategy section without looking around for help. "Back right corner," Ava said, pointing. "Thank you." That was it. No small talk. No smile. No attempt to linger. Just direction. He left the store with a book tucked under his arm and disappeared into the afternoon. Ava barely thought about him again. Until he returned. A week later, he walked in as if it were the most natural thing in the world, nodded at her, and said, "Ava, right?" She blinked, surprised. "Yeah," she said slowly. "Do I know you? You helped me last week." "Oh." He glanced toward the shelves. "You should reorganize that section." She stared at him, then laughed, though there was more disbelief than amusement in it. "Wow. Okay. It is inefficient," he said calmly. She folded her arms. "You always speak like that?" "Like what?" "Like everything has already been solved in your head." Marcus considered her for a moment. "Most things are," he said. "People are usually late to the conclusion." She rolled her eyes, but she remembered that conversation longer than she wanted to admit. There was something unsettling about Marcus. Not in a bad way. Just in a way that made her aware of herself. He was older than Ethan by a few years, though not enough to feel inappropriate. He worked in finance, had his own apartment on the north side, drove a clean silver car, and dressed like a man who did not spend much time wondering whether he would have enough. He did not speak often, but when he did, it carried weight. And unlike Ethan, who seemed to wear his feelings openly, Marcus seemed to keep his own carefully locked away. The second time he asked for her number, it came so smoothly she almost did not realize it was happening. "I would like to take you to dinner," he said. Ava glanced up from the register. "That sounds like a line." "It is not." She smiled faintly. "You always this direct?" "Only when I see something I want." The words should have made her uncomfortable. Instead, they made her curious. She told herself she was being polite, maybe even cautious. She gave him her number. And by the time he texted that evening to ask whether she was free on Friday, she had already convinced herself that one dinner could not hurt anything. That first dinner changed the air around her. Not because it was romantic in some dramatic, obvious way. It was because Marcus made everything feel bigger than it looked on the surface. The restaurant was quiet, Elegant and too polished for a girl like Ava, who still checked the price of groceries before she bought them. Ava sat a little straighter than usual. Marcus noticed. "You are not comfortable here," he said. Ava glanced around. "I am fine." "You are adjusting." She frowned. "Is that supposed to mean something?" "It means you are not used to ease." That word again. Ease. Ava looked at him. "You say things like that as if it is a fact." "It usually is." She watched him for a second. He was not trying to flatter her. He was not trying to put on a show. He was simply observing her as though she were something worth understanding, and that was oddly more intimate than charm. When the food came, he asked her what she thought about classes, about her future, about the kind of life she wanted. Not the surface kind of questions people ask to sound interested. Real questions. "What do you actually want?" he asked at one point, setting his fork down. Ava paused. Nobody asked her that with such simple seriousness. "I want to finish school," she said carefully. "That is not what I asked." She looked down for a second. "I know." He waited. She exhaled. "I want stability," she admitted. "I want to stop worrying all the time. I want to feel like I am building something instead of just surviving." Marcus nodded as if that answer made perfect sense. "You can have that," he said. Ava looked at him sharply, half laughing because he said it so easily. People cannot just have everything they want. Why not? She smiled, despite herself. Because life is not that kind. He leaned back slightly, studying her. "Sometimes it is," he said. "Sometimes people just settle for less because they're afraid of expecting more." The words landed harder than she expected. By the time he drove her home, she was quieter than she had been at dinner. When he pulled up outside her building, he glanced at her before she got out. "You think too much," he said. Ava frowned. "That is not exactly a compliment. It is not an insult either." She opened the door, then paused. "And what do you think?" He held her gaze. "That you are used to carrying things alone," he said. "That is not a weakness. But it does make it hard to know when to let someone else in." She said nothing, because he had touched something true. Then she got out of the car and went upstairs with his words following her all the way into her apartment. That night, her phone buzzed while she was sitting on her bed. "Ethan, did you get home?" A few seconds later, another text. "Marcus, text me when you are in." Ava stared at the screen. Two men. Two completely different tones. One asking with softness. The other expecting without hesitation. She smiled faintly at first, then stopped smiling when the weight of it began to settle. At the beginning, she told herself it meant nothing. Two people caring. That was all. It was possible to have friends. It was possible to be liked. It was possible to be wanted by more than one person without that meaning anything at all. That was what she told herself. But life has a way of making innocent things overlap. A missed call from Ethan while she was sitting in Marcus's car. A text from Marcus while she was laughing with Ethan after class. A moment where her phone lit up with the wrong name at the wrong time. And then another. And another. The first time she lied, it came out before she had a chance to think. "I am studying tonight." The lie was small enough to feel harmless. She was not studying. She was sitting in Marcus's car while they waited for the rain to ease. The second lie came easier. "I fell asleep early." She had not. She had been out with Ethan, talking until the streetlights came on and the campus quieted down around them. By the third lie, she barely paused. It was not that she wanted to deceive anyone. It was that the truth became more complicated every time she delayed it. With Ethan, she was softer, more open, less careful. She let herself laugh too loudly and speak too honestly. He made her feel normal in the best possible way, as if she could be tired, broke, uncertain, and still worthy of being cared for. With Marcus, she was measured, more aware of herself, more polished. He made her feel like someone whose life could expand if she let it. He showed her good restaurants, quiet galleries, bookstore cafes in neighborhoods she had only passed through before. He spoke with the kind of calm confidence that made her wonder what it would feel like to stop worrying about every little thing. With Ethan, she felt safe. With Marcus, she felt elevated. And that was where the trouble began. Because the two feelings did not cancel each other out. They competed. One afternoon, Ethan sat beside her on a bench near the library and looked at her for a little longer than usual. "You have been distant," he said. Ava looked away. "I have just been busy." He nodded slowly, as though he did not fully believe her but did not want to push too hard. "I am not asking for every second of your time," he said. "Just do not disappear on me while I am still here." Her chest tightened. Because she already was disappearing. Not in the visible sense. Not physically. But in the way her mind kept splitting, the way her thoughts never rested in one place long enough to feel honest. She forced a smile. "You are being dramatic." He gave a small laugh, but his expression stayed serious. "Maybe," he said. "But I know what it feels like when someone is pulling away and not saying why." Ava lowered her eyes. She wanted to answer him honestly. She wanted to say she was confused, that nothing about this felt simple anymore, that she was trying not to hurt him or anyone else, and somehow that effort was making her feel worse. But she did not say any of that. Instead, she changed the subject. Marcus noticed too, but he noticed in a different way. He never accused. He simply observed. One evening, after dinner, he stood beside his car and looked at her for a long moment before speaking. "I do not share what matters to me," he said. Ava frowned slightly. "What does that mean?" "It means I do not waste time on uncertainty." She looked at him, uneasy now. "Are you trying to say something?" "I am saying that if I choose to give my attention to someone, I expect clarity." Ava swallowed. "And if there is no clarity?" Marcus held her gaze. "Then the answer arrives eventually," he said. Usually in a way that is less comfortable than honesty would have been. She did not know why his words unsettled her so much. Maybe because he sounded certain. Maybe because a part of her knew he was right. Or maybe because she was starting to understand that both of these men were moving towards something she had not yet decided to define. And still she did nothing. Not because she was heartless. Not because she wanted to manipulate anyone. But because she was afraid. Afraid of choosing wrong. Afraid of losing the one she did not pick. Afraid of admitting that she liked being wanted by both of them. Afraid, too, of what choosing would say about her own life. With Ethan, she would have to accept struggle. With Marcus, she would have to accept distance from the life she already knew. One was love she understood. The other was possibility she could not stop imagining. So she delayed. She told herself she had time. Time to figure it out. Time to understand what her heart wanted. Time to make sure nobody got hurt. But time does not stay still for indecisive people. It moves. And one day it starts collecting its debt. That day came in the form of Saturday. Ethan's text came first. "I want to take you somewhere. It matters." Ava read it twice. Her face softened. There was something almost boyish in the way he had written it, careful enough to hide the nerves, but honest enough to reveal they were there. An hour later, Marcus texted. "Clear your schedule. You are with me." Ava stared at that one for a long time. Same day. Same time. No room for excuses. No room for delay. She sat on the edge of her bed, phone in hand, while her apartment remained quiet around her. Her closet stood open. 2 outfits lay on her bed. One simple, soft, familiar. The other more refined, more deliberate, more aligned with the version of herself Marcus seemed to see. She looked at both, then at her reflection in the mirror. Her face looked tired. Not physically, exactly. More like her mind had been holding too much for too long. She stood and crossed to the window. Ava rested her forehead lightly against the glass. "What am I doing?" The answer came in pieces, none of them comforting. She was trying to keep both men close because each one gave her something she did not want to lose. Ethan gave her warmth. Marcus gave her ambition. Ethan reminded her of who she was. Marcus hinted at who she could become. And in the middle of that, she had become someone divided. She heard the phone buzz again from the bed. Then again. She turned slowly and walked back to it. Ethan. Marcus. Ethan. Marcus. Her breathing slowed. Her mind raced. Every thought collided with another thought before it could settle. If I choose Ethan, what happens to the life Marcus is showing me? If I choose Marcus, what happens to the love Ethan has given me? If I choose neither, what happens to me? She sat down again, phone still in her hand. Her thumb hovered over the screen as if it might answer for her. For weeks, she had been balancing two conversations, two expectations, two possibilities. She had convinced herself that if she kept things moving carefully enough, nobody would be hurt. But every delay had created more weight. Every unanswered question had made the next one heavier. And now both men were asking at the same time. She thought of Ethan laughing at something ridiculous she had said, leaning back on a bench with the sun on his face, pretending not to be tired. She thought of Marcus opening the door for her in silence, handing her a glass of water before she could ask, speaking to her as if she were capable of more than the world had allowed her to believe. She thought of the way Ethan made her feel wanted. She thought of the way Marcus made her feel seen. The phone buzzed again. Her pulse jumped. She looked at the screen. Ava did not answer. Because she could not. Not yet. Not without losing something. And maybe that was the true terror of the moment. Not that she had two men calling her. Not that she had lied. Not even that the truth had become impossible to untangle. It was that choosing would force her to admit that every choice carries a cost. Outside, the city kept breathing. A car horn sounded below. A distant train rattled. Somewhere beyond the buildings. Ava sat still in the center of her small apartment, phone trembling faintly in her hand, while two lives waited on the other end of the screen. She looked down at the names again. Two futures. Two paths. Two endings she had not yet earned the right to know. Her eyes closed slowly. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Silence filled the room. Then black. Who do you suggest she settles with? Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Hit like if you enjoyed the video and drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from.